Hey, everybody. Today for you, podcast number 97. Today's podcast is titled, Do You Show Up Prepared? Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. We are Dr. Pete and Sandy Lombardi, and this is the Limitless Life Network podcast where we flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from reaching your goals and living the life that you are called to lead. And we want to start off by thanking everyone for tuning in to this week's podcast. I know that we put together some really good content once again, at least in our humble opinion. We prepared for this week's podcast to follow the title. And I really appreciate the comments. I know we did have 1 week where we did not put out a podcast. And when we put the next one out, people were talking about it and commenting, and I just I super love the feedback, just absolutely love the feedback. So we're glad that we're making a positive impact in your life, and we appreciate you for taking time. So share the love, as we always suggest, hit the like button, subscribe button.
Share.
There's buttons that you can click on, you know how it is, and in the social media / internet world. Okay, so on with the show. So a lot of things happened since the last podcast, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Big world event, as everybody knows, attempted assassination on Donald Trump. So great news. He wasn't killed. Bad news is somebody was killed and other people injured. So that's too bad. Really awful. But anyway, today's topic about showing up prepared really came from a couple of different places. And so let's start off with this first point. The first point is called overflow. Sandy, you got anything how would you describe overflow? What does that mean?
Well, overflow, so more than, exceeding, flowing out of.
Right. So it's really like an abundance, right? So abundance mindset. If you notice if you're watching this video live and you notice any flashing, it's because we're recording in an absolute raging thunder and lightning storm right now. So if you hear wind rustling or rain pounding, it's because there's a great weather event going on outside right now. So anyway, so yeah, there's an overflow right now of rain pouring down on us. It's exciting. So but it's we wanted to talk about really the dynamic of being prepared, right? So showing up with abundance. What would be the opposite of that? Maybe that's a good way to look at about overflow. What's the opposite of overflow? What would you think, somebody showing up in a state of what?
Well, they might be exhausted or just not ready to perform whatever task they're there to perform. Overflow would be the opposite.
How about showing up needy?
Needy, sure.
Right? Like, do you ever run into people like that show up and they don't have anything to give,
right?
But they are looking to receive, right? So overflow means that you have more than enough, that you can give more than enough out of that more than enough. Right. So, and preparation provides that, right? So how do we prepare? That's the next question that makes, when I think about being prepared, how does somebody prepare? So where does it begin?
It's intentional time. I guess it depends on what we're talking about, but things that could apply across a lot of different areas. Intentional time put into preparation for whatever it is, whether it is a physical activity or presentation, something you're sharing with others, being prepared for work. I mean, even sleep to me is part of preparation, like making sure you're properly rested for what.
That's huge.
nutrition. I mean, there's so much that goes into being prepared.
I don't want to skip over that, like that rest equation. That is one of the biggest things that I find that people struggle with is good sleep. I mean, we consult with hundreds and hundreds of people about their health, and one of the biggest challenges for years has always been a good night's sleep. And it's one of the biggest factors to the amount of energy that you carry into your day. And so many people think that they can get away with, it's the way I function. I function on, 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Well, that will catch up with you, and you will get to a point where you will start to have health issues because of that lack of sleep.
Well, it's more than likely they're using caffeine to help themselves get through the day. Right?
Yeah, and some people are just tough. They have a strong will, right? So then they push through it, which I get it. I can be like that at times. I just push through things. But when it comes to preparation, that is where it begins, is the night before, right? The night before means getting to bed on time. It means laying out your clothes the next day for whatever you're going to do. It means thinking ahead. It means being deliberate about something ahead of time. And I think about, like, our pastor preached an amazing sermon again, right? But he does that week in and week out because he spends so much time in preparation. And we went to another church the previous week, and that pastor preached an amazing sermon, and he talked about his level of preparation.
Yeah,
he scoured the Bible, like literally scouring it all week long on just these points that he wanted to make. And like that level of dedication and commitment to something you're trying to do is part of preparation, And I think about this whole thing with, security around Donald Trump's rally. There was a lot of preparation that went into that, and everybody's pointing fingers at everybody and looking at all the mistakes as if you would have done it better or done it differently, right? But at the end of the day, there was a ton of preparation just to pull off that single event. He prepared a speech. There's so much preparation and all the things that we see, but we only see the final product, right? So the same thing in your own life is preparation, right? What are you preparing for, and how prepared are you, right? So it begins with those habits that you have day in and day out. Morning routines and rituals, they lead to how the day is going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you either set yourself up for success or for failure, the day before. And I think of that like as a mom homeschooling, like if I'm not prepped the night before and already know, like, however you subject, what we're going to cover, and maybe we've got a day where we're out at our co-op, like we need to have meals ready to already pack the night before to get out of the house on time. Like there's preparation to set ourselves up for a successful day. And that's the same if you're headed to work or whatever you're doing.
Yeah. All right. Very good. That brings us to point number 2. All right. So what's point number 2?
Results come from faith, not faith by results. And this was also from our sermon yesterday or Sunday. And this is something I think most people, and I know myself included, struggle with, is there's some outcome that we want. And a lot of times it's around someone's healing, very common, right? Like I have a good friend who passed away of cancer, and we prayed so hard that she would be healed here. And then that didn't happen, and that's hard to understand, and that can really rock our faith when we don't have the answer that we want, and why not? She's a good person. We have all these reasons in our human mind, but the point was that God is the same always. He's good. His promises are true, and regardless of what we want, it's for His good and His glory. And like our faith needs to be first. We have faith that He is good God and He has good intentions for us. And then secondary to that is the end result, like it can't flip.
Right. So living by that, living by faith, meaning that I'm always going to have this trust and reverence for God first. And then the results that come from that are really actually the best results that could possibly happen, believe it or not. Even though they're probably not the results that you're wishing for or intending, but it's kind of like what Jordan Peterson says: as long as I'm in the truth, whatever results happen are the best possible results. And I really believe that. That's because I have faith, right? I really believe that wholeheartedly, that if I can keep that faith always, whatever results happen are the best results that could possibly happen, because it's beyond me.
Right. And it's going to be beyond our emotional, I think, level of acceptance, or it's beyond our sight, So faith is of things unseen. Like it doesn't look like it's a positive, right? Like some of these really serious things that will take place, but the result that he sees is he's walking through it with us. Like, right,
Yeah, 100%. You're right on track. He's walking through it with us, but we don't see further ahead, right? We see the immediate, and therefore now we pass judgment on the immediate, and because it's not the ideal, it's not what we wanted. Now we're like, oh, I don't know, my faith is, this is really testing my faith, And yeah, I guess that is an interesting statement, testing your faith. But it's either you have it or you don't have it, and it's a trust. It's a trust that you're going to just continue to follow no matter what, and that's hard to do. That is really hard to do, but it is so worth it, because in the end, it's going to be great. So that kind of leads us to point number 3.
Point number 3 is trust with childlike faith.
So childlike faith, and I guess this is I really resonate with this because I love thinking of myself in my kid self, like little Peter running around as I used to, or ride my bike around, going over jumps and setting up. I'm still doing it, right? I'm still riding my bike, going over jumps. Fell off my bike today, skinned my knee. I was like, oh, this is just like when I was a little kid. Nothing's changed. But it was, childlike faith means that you trust your dad, right? Like you trust your parents. You don't even think about when you're a little kid, whatever they tell you, you blindly follow them, and you trust them because they've done nothing but look out for your best interest your entire life. And that's kind of like what my faith is like with God, because I look at him now, and I never used to. I really look at him as like my true father, right? I had my biological father, great man. And I've never heard anybody say anything bad about my father.
No.
He's a great man, but God is far superior, right? Far superior. And my siblings will all agree with that, that God is far superior than our great earthly father that we had. So I look at that, and it's like, I always trusted what my dad said, my earthly dad, and I trust God so much more.
I had a conversation with a woman at our Bible study last week, and she didn't have the father figure that you did, or that you described. And so she was saying how, as a new Christian, she keeps like thinking there's a catch. Like, how can this be true that I'm just accepted fully with grace? I can't earn it. There's no strings attached. She's like, she brought up the word catch. Like, there's a catch. There's got to be a catch. And I'm like, there's no catch. But it's challenging for someone who didn't have that childlike faith. Like, someone spoke, evil or negativity over them, and they've learned early on that they couldn't trust that parent figure. But
yeah, we're definitely in a world that is not always perfect by any means, and as a result of that, when we start to have that loss of trust, that becomes a major, major problem. And we see that today, right?
Yeah.
There's this loss of faith, there's loss of trust, and there's a lot of skepticism. And when we start to have that, we start to see this major division start to happen. And that is exactly, the plan of Satan, is to divide us, to not have us be united. And I believe our country could be united, but it's going to have to come, I believe, through really us developing some level of trust again. There's got to be something that we can believe in again as a nation, that we can come together over, and that I think it's no longer a battle of this battle of
Like
of
political parties.
of red versus blue or Democrat versus Republican. It really has come down to a battle of good and evil. And it's going to really be that. It's not, because there's good people on both sides of the political aisle, but then there's absolutely evil too. And I'd hate to see anybody's life be limited by getting, I guess, duped by the evil side of anything, right? So, childlike faith. What can you trust in? Always, I believe that you can trust in what the Bible says. You can trust in God. He will never let you down, for sure. So that brings us to point number 4, which is looking through a different lens. So you brought this up today, that you had a conversation with somebody.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was thrilled. Someone that we go to for a lesson asked about coming into our chiropractic office because she and her husband are struggling with infertility, and they've tried the fertility center, and it's been a year and a half or so, and just not seeing any results, and frustrated. She's constantly feeling sick from all of the treatments and just discouraged. And I was so thrilled that like her lens changed and that she's wanting to explore some different options. And I said to Pete, like, it's looking back and trying to figure out, I guess, looking at our healing in a different way, looking at what is going on, the root cause of things, and bringing the body back into health, and then see what happens, rather than trying to, I guess, treat or manipulate the body to do something that it's, for some reason, not
ready to do. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I always talk about with, especially when we're onboarding new people into the practice, is that how we just look at things from a different lens. The chiropractic lens is the true chiropractic lens, is looking at what makes the body well, right? We don't look at the sickness. We're not trying to diagnose the disease that you have or the ailment or the symptom, but what makes the body well? What does it need to express
optimal health?
Optimal health, the way it was designed to work. So it's a totally different way of looking at things. And if you always look at something in a specific way, in a specific manner, if you're looking at a problem the same way, and you keep trying the same things over and over again, and you're not solving the problem, in other words, you're not getting the outcome that you desire, then you've got to approach it from a different angle. You've got to step back and say, okay, let me just, for a moment, just stop doing what I've been doing, and let's look at it from somebody else may have a different angle on this. Who can I talk to that has a different perspective? And that's something that we've always offered. And I think it's, the principles of chiropractic are based on natural laws. They're not based on witchcraft or anything else. But unfortunately, we've just been horrible at explaining that to people. Our level of communication and our profession's mixed messaging has just been horrible. But as the way I think that we describe it to people, it makes sense to them, and that's why they choose it. But it's just looking at a problem differently. And when it comes to any problem that you're up against, if you're not seeing results, and I'm not just talking about your health-related issues or anything like that, but any problem in life, if you're looking at it from a specific angle and you're still struggling to see the result that you want, it's time for a different approach. Who could you talk to that's getting the result that you want, that maybe just sees things differently, a fresh perspective?
Yeah.
So we encourage you to always look at that. Never sell out to just one idea. Always be open to the possibility that what you've been doing might be wrong.
I'm also thinking, like, in a marriage or any type of relationship, like, you just made me think, like stopping and seeing the situation through your spouse's lens or your child's lens, and just for a moment, just see what it looks like or what you think it looks like, and then talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very easy to assume what you think is the motive for something. And then so many times you're just so far off, you know, and if you just, there's oftentimes you just don't know the true thing that's going on. So yeah, look through a different lens. So what do they say? Put the shoe on the other foot, or walk in somebody else's shoes.
Right,
I don't know.
yeah.
Something about shoes. All right. So that brings us back to point number
5. This was you. The power of one.
This was me. The power of one. This is, I think, an encouraging statement more than anything. It's that I'm encouraging you all to realize that you have a lot more power than you think you do, and you have the ability to stand up to things. And unfortunately, today, our world, we're casual observers. And we don't think that we have much of an impact. And actually, I was talking to my trainer today, and he was telling me about a scene that he watched. And this was a setup situation where this grown man, a big guy, grabs a little kid and puts his hand over his mouth and runs down an alley. And they had a hidden camera to watch people that would see this and how they would react. And they would take notice, and they would look back at their phone and walk away and pretend like they didn't see it. And the majority of people that saw this man ripping this kid up and scooping him up and they were actors, did nothing except one little woman sprinted after the man. And he had to talk her down. She was absolutely going ballistic because she was literally trying to save this kid's life because she thought he was being abducted. And my point is that type of person is you. You could be the person that makes the difference in somebody's life. But too many times we can be casual observers. You know, Donald Trump gets shot, wounded, and his reaction was unique. It was somebody that stood up and yelled, "Fight, fight, fight!" And that is it's a response. It's a reflex. Like that's a fight or flight situation. He's not somebody that's running away and ignoring a problem. He's somebody that's saying there's still a problem and we need to address this, right? And I'm this is not a political statement, but Gandhi did the same thing. Gandhi did the exact same thing. He was one man, and he was peaceful, and he was intelligent, he was articulate, and he just sat in, and he ended 300 years of oppression. So one person can make a huge difference. Okay, and it's quite a comparison. Donald Trump and Gandhi in the same breath, right? Like they don't look anything alike. Obviously, they're really not a lot in common, except for the simple fact that they just believe. They believe in a cause, right? And you may not like Donald Trump, but that's fine. I just look at the character that he's demonstrating is that, he's willing to fight. He's not afraid of dying for a cause.
I hadn't thought of this, but I was sitting at a writing lesson with my daughter this morning, and there was 2 other moms talking, and one of the women had adopted a son from China, and he's in high school now and being bullied terrible by his classmates. And she said it just kept going on, and he would come home and talk about it, which is like, I'm glad that he's talking to me about it, but he was tolerating it and kind of laughing along at their jokes about him and his nationality. And she finally said to him, like, you need to speak up for yourself. Like, this isn't okay. So that's the power of one too, is to speak up for yourself and what's right, and not to allow, and I said to her, our pastor again had spoken about identity and how important it is for the teen and young adult generation right now. Like, if you don't understand your identity and who you are created to be in God, then the world will choose an identity for you or offer you other identities. And, to be bullied and to be felt diminished because of your nationality is not okay, right? So being the power of you yourself, speaking up for yourself, against things like that. I think another powerful example of one.
Yeah. I mean, you're called by name and you're a child of God. You are loved, and that's for eternity. That's an amazing thing. You're not less than, you're more than. So, yeah, that's all we have for this week's edition of the Limitless Life Network podcast. Be sure to tune in each and every week to stay connected, be inspired, and keep moving toward your best life by stripping away all those limitations.
See you next week.